Welcome to the Sleep is a Skill podcast. My name is Molly McLaughlin, and I own a company that optimizes sleep through technology, accountability, and behavioral change. Each week, I'll be interviewing world-class experts ranging from doctors, innovators, and thought leaders to give actionable tips and strategies that you can implement to become a more skillful sleeper. Let's jump into your dose of practical sleep training. Welcome to the Sleep is a Skill podcast. My guest today is Joy Dushey, and she really lives up to that name of hers. She is an absolute joy, and she is the founder of The Joyful Approach, a holistic guide, an alchemist, a facilitator in healing, an educator, and an activist for deeper connection of humanity. Now, that's a bit of her bio, but just to go a bit deeper on what this Joyful Approach looks like, it's a life system that combines the upgrading of practical daily disciplines around eating, sleeping, exercising, breathing, and thinking with deeper spiritual work addressing core values, self-love, intentionality, and authenticity. The approach allows for living in a true flow of life and for the unfolding of our best and highest selves. And a couple call-outs about this interview. Now, we had a great time on this conversation, and we actually recorded it quite some time ago, back when the lockdown had kind of first happened, and it was really great to get some of her insights around the topic, but we go into the importance of breath work as it relates to calming the nervous system and the importance and connection of that with our ability to countably get great sleep night after night. So she's going to provide us with a lot of different kind of techniques and awareness around breath work. And she also gets vulnerable, sharing her story and how she came to really come to breath work from a need. It was impacting her health, the way she was living before, and then the after effects of then bringing that into her life. So I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. So let's dive in. Now, before we get into the podcast, I do want to take a quick minute to give a shout out to our sponsor, BetterHelp, or as I like to call it, a therapist in your pocket. It's the exact app that I used when I was going through my really challenging period of insomnia while traveling overseas. And the ability to maintain a consistent therapist in real life was just really not an option for me since we were jumping around from country to country. So the ability to, with using my phone, have video calls weekly with my therapist. I was paired with I connected with a great therapist right off the bat, but I do know other people who have been able to kind of shop around with some of the therapists on that app until they find a great fit for them. And in between those calls, one of the things that I found was really helpful is that you can also send voice notes, text messages, images in between that, longer weekly video call so that you do have this really very real ongoing connection and support that I certainly, at least in my experience, hadn't felt with real life therapists that I had used in the past. And also the pricing structure is much more competitive than a lot of the real life therapists that you can come into contact with. So I found it to be a lot of benefits. I recommend it to a lot of people that are just kind of going through struggles in their life or just simply want to be able to up level and bring in that level of reflection and awareness into their life about what's both working and not working. And you can certainly cancel at any time. And for our sleepy community, the BetterHelp company has hooked us up with 10% off if you go to betterhelp.com/sleep-is-a-skill. Again, betterhelp.com/sleep-is-a-skill. All right, Joy, welcome to the Sleep is a Skill podcast. I'm so grateful to have you here today.
Well, thank you so much, Molly. I'm so happy to be here.
So this is really an honor because I've gotten to have heard a lot about you over the years and then got to have the experience of being a part of one of your breathwork workshops recently. And it was so really, really moving and intriguing. And it made me want to learn even more about all that you offer and all that you do with your clients, particularly because this is so much of a topic for many of my people that have difficulty both falling asleep and staying asleep. So I think it would be really great to start at the beginning of how this business was created for you and why you're so passionate about this topic.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So I experienced a great transformation in my life years ago when after suffering with adversity, suffering great illness, and that was stemmed from lots of trauma. So losing my brother and then the heartache, that was a very tragic loss. And then my body, I'm very, aligned with the metaphysical beliefs that if the body holds onto so much emotional pain, it can result in dis-ease. And so I did wind up having a full blown out stroke at 29 years old. And it was in that time of recovery where I just really was in the dark and facing, lots of question about what was really most meaningful for me and just reevaluating my life up until then. And I just really had a big awakening, and I started to embark on a holistic life path and a spiritual path. And it was almost like I felt kind of like I was reborn in a way. And it was quite remarkable to have all these openings and these new experiences by living this holistic way of living, more spirited, more meaningful. So I started to get into the whole, the trainings of all with esoteric, but all along, I want to say that even though I was healing, I was still suffering with lots of the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, lots of residue from that trauma that wasn't resolved, even with all the talk therapy and the modalities that I was turning to. So I would say about perhaps 10 years in, I had like a breaking point where I had a full-blown panic attack. And that's when I found a coach that really helped me with all of this new training with biofeedback that was really through mindful breathing. And I call that like the self-regulating, and how we can really go from that, the nervous system, the amygdala that is very activated, which I'm sure you're aware of, but to really bring the nervous system into that parasympathetic state to calm, to bring us into a state of calm. And so that started to create a great shift in my life where I was starting to live with a lot more ease. Now, I was just, that at that time, I was really thriving because I felt like, all of a sudden I was shifting all the neural pathways, and there was a lot more ease in my life. And then just a few years later, I experienced just another like wave of an awakening. And I was out in LA, in California, and I was really seeking like even, more healing. And I found a coach that was offering something called breathwork. And, when I had no idea what I was getting myself into, just the description was like, oh, feeling lighter and more connected to your spirit. And it was very intriguing to me. So I showed up to this woman's house in Echo Park, and it was just, literally like an hour and a half later, I don't know where I went. I don't know what I experienced, but it was extremely cathartic. And I knew that in that hour and a half, I experienced like way more healing than I ever did in my life. Like it was just like so paramount and so profound and very mystical, very spiritual, very otherworldly, in a way.
I definitely get that. Wow. So, okay. So you have that experience, and then I would assume that it's like, I want more of that. How can I have that more regularly in my life? I think all of us, to some greater or lesser degree, might be able to think when you shared that it's like, oh, okay, I've had some semblance, some moment or glimpse of that. And then the difference being with you were able to really take this into and make this a way of life where it's something that you practice regularly. So what did that look like to then bridge that gap from that experience once to now being such a master of this area?
As you said, it was so infectious to me. So I felt the need to continue this work on a weekly basis for almost a year, working virtually with that same coach, even when I was in New York. And if I was in LA, we'd meet up occasionally. But then I just felt so called to create a practice that would merge my skills, my life experiences, and all the trainings with holistic life guide, being a holistic life coach along with this alchemy. I called it I feel like it is alchemy because it's very transformational. And so I created the practice because if I experienced the amount of healing that I did, I wanted to share this with the rest of the world and can create this space for people to come and have those kind of experiences. And that was it. It just morphed into something so big because it's like people experience it and they're like, they just want more and more because it's something that really changes people's lives,
Okay, perfect. That's a perfect place because I'd love to start there from many people that are coming to sleep as a skill are having a sense that they have a loss of power in the area of their sleep. And of course, as that can have that ripple effect into other areas of their lives, and it can be stemming from other areas of their lives that aren't working as well as they might like. And so when something's like so primal as sleep is out of whack, it can be so disempowering. So I'm wondering the how for people, how they could begin to make the connection with breath work and that ability to being able to tap into that relaxation in the evening, sleeping more thoroughly throughout the night, and how that links up together with that parasympathetic response that you were kind of speaking to.
Yeah, absolutely. So what happens is when the nervous system, I'm sure is so activated in that constant fight or flight or freezing mode, it can't relax and it can't come into a state of calm. And even when we think we're okay, on a subconscious level, the nervous system is really suffering because it's not regulated. And so this is why I feel that it's so important to have a daily practice where we're doing some kind of deep breathing to bring the nervous system on a steady basis of calm, right? And so I experienced this myself where I was someone who lived such a rigid lifestyle. I was so, I was nervous. And so I was afraid, or, PTSD would just come in out of nowhere at random moments. And I needed things to hold on to control with, to make myself feel safe with. And as I saw that shift, I all of a sudden felt way more flexible, way more free, and more spontaneous, more relaxed. So this is why I feel that it's really necessary to have that daily practice of some of that deep breathing to bring us into that state of calm, even when we're not having the episodes. When we have the moments where we do, if we wake up in the middle of the night and we feel like we can't sleep and there's so much on our mind, we can turn to the tools again and do some of that deep breathing, even in the middle of the night.
Absolutely. No, you got me excited on that one because it's interesting how many people will then be looking to improve their sleep. And so they'll just look at the nights and, okay, what can I do to improve the routine, the bedtime, the gadgets, the gizmos, all that stuff. Maybe that can be a component, but so much work to be done often happens during these daylight hours and throughout the day to help modulate that, straight to the root of it, our breathing. So what are some of the things that you learned? So you're, back at that Echo Park time and then, so you have that aha moment. And what were some of the things that you were struck by along the way that then began to open up for you from this process where they're just, so when we think of breath work, so many people will be like, well, where do I even begin with breath work? Is that just downloading like an app and going through it? Is it my own thing? There are different techniques. There's 4-7-8, there's 5-5-5, there's all the, like, where do I begin? So I wonder if you could help kind of demystify all that for us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I'm really happy that you asked the question because I think there's a lot of confusion around breath work. And I said this the other day in the workshop, like breath work, the term breath work is so broad and it's almost like saying, do you exercise? Well, there's so many different forms of exercise and fitness, and the same thing with breath work. There's so many different forms of breath work or, meditations. Okay. So the passive meditation is what I was explaining before that I think we need to do on a daily basis to regulate the nervous system and to come into that parasympathetic state where we're really regulating the limbic system and getting out of that trauma, that nervous way of being, or not as relaxed and not as calm, right? Not as mindful. Now, breath work, the alchemical transformative breath work that I facilitated the other day for you, for example, is an active meditation. So it's almost like you're going to a soul cycle class or an active fitness class with the breath to pull up from the unconscious. So what we're doing is we're bypassing the conscious mind to pull up some unconscious, subconscious material, energy that has been residing inside of us for such a long time that really holds us back. It's really, there's anxiety, there's fears, there's limiting beliefs, there's thought forms that are so fixed that we're not even aware of that we're living with on a daily basis, even on a subconscious level. When we can pull that stuff out and pull it up, we can then feel so much lighter. We feel so much more free because we're actually moving that energy. And then we can also access different states of consciousness, different brain waves. So lots of time, like I literally just worked with a client and she was in theta for most of the time that she was breathing. And then she even fell into the delta state. So it's really, I see so many people that are so backlogged and they can't get into delta. They really, really struggle. They can't get themselves to relax. Now, I've been working with this client for a while now. So she's really, and when the first time I saw her, she was, so anxious and really freaking out, during COVID time. And she's completely transformed, it's wild to see that. So it's just like we're constantly peeling layers and we're accessing just, deeper states through this work. So yeah, I offer workshops and classes and all of that, but essentially 3-part breath where we're breathing from the mouth the entire time. First from the belly, we're breathing in from the belly first. Then we're breathing in from our high chest, then exhaling through the mouth in a circular pattern so that we can move that energy.
Wow. So many questions. Okay. So I know you mentioned the different brain states that people can be finding themselves in depending on their level of aptitude for this. What are some of the ways that people can tell that they're accessing this? Do they need to be using something, or can they tell about the way they're showing up or they're breathing, or how do we make sense of that?
Okay. So a lot of times people will experience, first of all, at the beginning, it takes time to really get away from that conscious controlling mind. It's very masculine. The brain wants to hold on. And so once we get past that, we keep signaling the brain to let go and let go. Then we start to kind of like sink into another state of consciousness where it's almost like we're in the in-between, where the client, the breather, will hear my voice, but they're almost in between this like lucid state in a way. So they're not so in their brain, but they're more in their body, and they're actually experiencing just like a deeper connection within themselves, with that more intimate part of themselves, so they have more access to that deeper part of them.
So interesting. And so when you speak to the theta and delta different states, is that still in the masculine domain to be like, is there a particular state we want to get to, or is it just part of noticing the cycling in and out of those different periods? What does that look like for, because of course I've got a lot of clients that will have, the Muse headbands or different things that then they can, start kind of dissecting that. Is that necessary? What are we looking at around that?
No, I think it's, I always say, like, first of all, everybody has a completely different experience, and my experiences are never, ever going to be the same, because it's such a spiritual experience where the soul is really, it knows what it needs. And so I just don't like to be too analytical about what's going on, but I can usually tell where somebody's at, and I just let them go. Like my teacher, David Elliott, I always like to credit David, wonderful teacher. He says, like, if you notice that they're not breathing as much intensely with the, that rhythm, that they're slipping into a different state, that's okay. It's what the soul is like really calling for. I can more or less tell and I allow the person to have that experience. And sometimes I'll nudge them to come back to the breathing if I need them to, if I can notice that there's energy, because what we're doing is we're actually moving energy and healing energy here. I will, just nudge them and get them to kind of, amplify some of that in different ways. We might take a yell, we might do some just shaking up of the energy as well.
Wow, really interesting. Yeah. So, in the realm of sleep, many people that are tracking, so often we'll have most of our clients wearing either a couple of these key trackers, and often they'll log the respiratory rate, will be part of the feedback we'll get. And people will notice the ability to impact to some greater or lesser degree that respiratory rate at night as they start training that area of themselves throughout the day. So, what we see at night is then a readout of how many breaths per minute that people are, taking while they're sleeping. I will often notice some of my clients that will come in immediately dealing with anxiety, that there's this mirroring effect of how they are throughout the day with that anxious kind of short, shallow breath, and then how it gets played out in the evening, which is just so fascinating to see how much of a mimicking we can have. So have you been able to see for people, because there's certain people that come through and they're like, oh, I'm just a lost cause. I can't possibly, this is how it's been for years. They might be just have retired or what have you. This is a pattern of being for them for so long. Have you been able to see people really transform this area reliably through and make it a lasting change for themselves?
Yeah, so many people will get back to me and be like, "Thank you so much. I slept like a baby last night. I have not slept like that in years," or some things like that, where it's not like I'm logging their sleep, or because that's not the ultimate goal, but it is. I mean, what a gift when you can sleep better, and because essentially what you're doing is you're really letting go of, like, just think about it, how many layers of stress and dense energy that you've been holding on to that's been not allowing you to relax in your life. So when you can lift that and then you can just sleep easier, it's just, I mean, it's remarkable, right?
Absolutely. And, you spoke to sharing vulnerably, which is so great about your experience with going through the periods of having panic attack. And, certainly the connection between that and breathing, and then the transformation of how to, really be able to notice those signs of anxiety or what have you and work through those. For so many people, they'll be coming through and they will be dealing with these panic attacks at different points, during their days. And then some even having nocturnal panic attacks. So then, of course, when your body's all on adrenaline in your evenings, it's just so challenging then to be able to calm the nervous system. So what are some of the benefits then of bringing in this breath work of the different types that you've mentioned? I know that, again, that's such a broad term for people if they are in those states and in that realm of just a tremendous amount of anxiety, particularly very timely for what's going on right now on the planet. What can be some of the benefits for the doing of this regular practice? Because so many people will be like, yeah, I know I should, but not quite making the connection of the why that this is so powerful.
Okay. So thank you. I can't stress this enough. Like, honestly, I cannot, because we are at a time, these are very, very unusual times, and they're super tough. Like, I don't care how you look at it. I mean, I've been thriving in many ways and evolving in many ways, but at the same time, it's also very challenging, and we are, we're forced to face the uncertain. And so it's really important that we see that a daily practice of calming the nervous system is a non-negotiable. If there's resistance around it, just ask yourself, the question, how do I want to feel? And if we were to just take a few deep breaths together, it's so apparent that we feel so much more calm when we can take those deep belly breaths and, relax. So I think it's really essential that we all have some rituals that we're creating for ourselves right now without putting too much pressure, but we really create the ones that are priority and the non-negotiables, right? Especially for our own well-being and our nervous system, our immune system, all of that. Now, the emotions that are coming up, especially now, I'm getting so many people that are, reaching out and saying, I'm feeling just this immense amount of anger. I'm feeling frustrated. I feel so irritable. I feel fed up. I feel desperate. I feel alone. I'm a big believer that we need to express and move that energy. We need to feel the energy and we need to actually express it, and then we need to move it. So talking to your girlfriend is great, but the energy is actually in your body and it's very somatic. And so we want to move that. And so I see breath work, the alchemical breath work, the transformative breath work is actually a somatic experience of how we can move that energy out, right, of the body. It's really, really important. And so if we can create this emotional hygiene, like a practice, maybe it's once a week, twice a week, depending on how much the person needs to move it. It's about, I would say like a 30-minute breath work per week, maybe twice a week. It could be a little less, it could be a little more, depending on the person. And it's very intuitive. I mean, it's up to the person to know like what's the right amount for them, right?
So good. Okay. So a lot of what you said in there spoke to me. And also, I love what you said about ritual. And a lot of what we'll look at Sleep as a Skill is also about really creating some of these basic rituals that in a 21st century can, get easily shirked or put to the side and forgotten as the importance. So I love that this idea of making this part of this ritual. I'm wondering, one of the things we speak to is bookends. So kind of a ritual for the morning and ritual for the evening. And I'm curious on how the breath work might look different at those maybe different points of the day. Or if you do suggest, if that does make sense to do breath work in the evening, or how you see that looking.
Yeah. So thank you for asking that, because I think that's so important. I have my morning rituals are really, really important. And they have shifted through COVID as well. Just to mention that I have found that it's really important to have more of a meditation in the morning upon waking, and also a gratitude practice to start the day with, because we're waking up and it's like, I don't know about you, but I'm like, what day is it? What month is it? I'm so confused. And then we just like, worry and all that stuff. So it's like just starting off with a nice ritual. I have some meditations if you go into my Instagram, link into bio, there are just some complimentary that I created even during COVID. So there's one for energy clearing, and I really love that one because what it does is it really just clears out your system so that you can actually feel really aligned just as you start your day. Or you can do it at night. It doesn't really matter. And so having the morning ritual with nourishment, with gratitude practice, with the meditation, that's really important for me. And then journaling. And then for the nighttime, I'm all about healthy habits for sleep and, setting the environment by 8:00, just dimming the lights and getting away from the blue lights and all of, I'm sure, the things that you talk about. Now, breath work can actually, it could stir up your energy, but I'm always facilitating a restoring at the end and some sound healing. I create a sound bath for the clients. So what that does is it harmonizes the physiological body and brings them into a restorative state. So it brings them down into that, more of a restoring. So the other night I facilitated for these beautiful mamas, an event, a private event. And I mean, even with facilitating with energy, I slept like a baby that night. So breathwork can be done at night, and it's not a problem. Just as long as after you do the active breathing, you go back into your normal state of breathing, and you just have some really soothing sounds to just bring you into that state of calm after, and to reintegrate in that way. And then you'll just really sleep nicely.
Wow.
Should be able to.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Okay. So cool. And so is there just one type of breath work that you would suggest for people to begin? So one, we'll definitely, because we'll want to for sure link to your Instagram, which is incredible. She's got all kinds of stuff going on there. It's lots of value. And is there a particular, almost beginner's intro, or a blanket recommendation that you have people make sure they implement into their mornings or even evenings?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, if I was to give a prescription to you guys or a protocol, I would say that on a daily basis, we do belly breathing, diaphragmatic breathing. if you want to start with 5 minutes a day, that would be amazing. 5 to 10, and then we can build up to 10 minutes a day, and that would be even more awesome. So it's diaphragmatic breathing, belly breathing. This is your daily practice. This is the non-negotiable. This is what is going to bring you into the parasympathetic. And there is that on my link into bio in the Instagram. You can find that, a free guided meditation. Now, the breath work, I would say start with 1 time a week. And if you love it, then you can, build up to twice a week. Or if you feel like you need it twice a week, that would be great. And to build those into whenever you can do that, whenever you can create the space for yourself. This is like lying down. You're going to cover your eyes with an eye pillow or just a little scarf or whatever. Just set up your space, and you're going to just do this lying breathing and, have headphones and enjoy it and move some energy.
Yeah. You actually definitely make it like a beautiful experience with like your interiors and the whole thing to like, it very, very much seems to make it a special event versus just sort of this thing to do. It seems to actually help facilitate the inspiration element of this. So, and as far as understanding for people how they can, because oftentimes it's kind of that missing link for people of, okay, so I know that there's something for me. I need to make this a non-negotiable, and yet I just am not able to fit this into my life myself. How can people learn more about you and all your offerings? And now you've got virtual events too and all kinds of stuff happening. So what are some of the best ways to learn more about you and to actually be able to make this more a part of their regular life?
Amazing. Thank you. So my website is thejoyfulapproach.com, and there's just a plethora of information that really explains this work. And there's also a breathwork audio that you can purchase for yourself and have in your library. So no matter where you are in the world, you can always access that and, just lie on your hotel, floor or a bed and do the breath work. And then I'm The Joyful Approach on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, but I'm not really so active on Facebook. Yeah. And then I have a podcast that's going to be launched next week.
Yes.
Hopefully. Yes.
Awesome.
And
what's the name of that one?
So it'll be The Methodology by The Joyful Approach.
Love it.
And and then there's a membership launching. And so that's going to be probably in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, it'll be up, where there's just so much about the life system, the Joyful Approach life system, weekly audios and breathwork videos and just journaling prompts and all the goodies that you get with this, plus a whole community that are all looking to integrate into a more holistic and spiritual way of living with all of the skills and tools and takeaways from the Joyful Approach.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And she does bring joy, people. So good.
Thank you.
So awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, to share how you were able to implement that into your own life, and now to how you've been able to impact so many others along the way. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. What an honor and what a pleasure.
You've been listening to the Sleep is a Skill podcast, the #1 podcast for people who want to take their sleep skills to the next level. Every Monday, I send out something that I call Molly's Monday Obsessions, containing everything that I'm obsessing over in the world of sleep. Head on over to sleepisaskill.com to sign up.